Hey everybody, welcome back to the Crave Show with Chris and JRuss. And this week we are lucky enough to have Melissa Nelson joining us. Welcome,
Yeah.
Melissa.
Hey,
Thank
Melissa.
you. Thank you.
How are you guys doing?
Yeah, doing good.
Ladies first. Go ahead, Melissa. How's life for you?
I'm ready for winter to be over, but I'm doing good.
Ready for
Yeah.
winter to be over? Man, we are hot down here in Texas. Is it still cold up there?
Yeah, I'm in Chicago, and JRuss, you live in Colorado too. And it just, like, we had some warm spells in Colorado, and then it just got cold again and 7 inches yesterday. But I'm in Chicago now, and it's raining here. It's cold here. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm
Oh
done.
my goodness. Yeah, no, I have not been paying attention to the weather at all. I mean, but outside here at Texas, like I was just at soccer practice with my 12-year-old, and it was hot. Like it was hot. We're all sweating and everything.
That's
I'm
awesome.
actually in Arizona right now, and it was 96 last week, but it has cooled off to somewhere in the like upper 70s this week. It's been
Oh, that's
really
perfect.
pleasant. But Colorado is getting dumped on right now,
Yeah.
and
Snow?
yeah,
Yep.
Really?
Hmm.
That's
yeah,
so
and
cool.
we're going home in a couple of days, so I'm
That's awesome. Like your
yeah,
house right now has a bunch of snow, you think?
yeah, I think so.
That's fun. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
cool
we
for
get to
like
build a
fun.
fire in the we get to build a fire in the fireplace for about 1 month, and then that's it.
Melissa, have you seen the bird?
I haven't seen it today. Oh, there she is. Yeah.
Should be
Cute.
around. The authentic Skydive Chicago fell out of the nest sparrow.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. They're trying to find ways of mitigating the bird situation in the hangar. That was like a topic of today's managers
Oh,
meetings.
really?
Yeah.
Hmm, okay.
Like, the conundrum of doing it ethically and not, you know what I mean? Like those birds are
I can't
smart.
take them all.
Yeah.
I was at a place just on Sunday, and you know how you've seen like sometimes they put those fake owls up. Have you seen those before?
Yep.
Well,
Yep,
this
they don't
place,
work.
yeah, no, they don't work. I don't think. Well, this place, they had fake snakes, like these rubber snakes that were hanging up. Like they had 4 or 5 of them, and there was no birds in there. Now, I didn't ask them if it. I mean, maybe it's just that day there was no birds, but
Uh,
I've never seen that before. And at least at that moment when I was there was no birds in there. So maybe those fake rubber, and they weren't like big, huge. They were,
hmm,
like maybe 2 feet long, just those little plastic rubber snakes that you get at a toy store. They just had like
yeah.
4 or 5 of them hanging up. Maybe it works.
We can
I don't
experiment.
know, man. I mean, maybe I have the prodigy of the sparrow world, but she's pretty smart, and I I feel like she would probably not
that
go
is
near
dude,
this.
that is the typical parent thinks their
Yeah,
kid is so smart.
Right?
maybe, but
Not my
I mean,
kid.
she is. I'll try putting a little snake out
That is
and see what
awesome.
happens.
Don't
Yeah,
scare her.
no, that's true.
That's
That's
awesome.
true.
No, but my kid is super smart. No, I'm just messing with you. That's awesome.
Okay, so normally, Melissa, we start with who are you for those majority of our audience is kind of younger jumpers, and tell us about yourself or tell us what you want people to know. Who are you?
Awesome. I guess like the classic cut and paste intro is I am a third generation skydiver. I have just over 12,000 skydives. I am an instructor, pro rating. I'm on the all women's demonstration team called Highlights. I am also a USPA national director. I'm also an author. And on the other side of my life, I am a yoga instructor. I'm like an examiner for yoga instructors. So that's the other part that I do when people don't see me on social media and doing all the things. And yeah, I'm a keynote speaker.
Okay.
Wait, so with the yoga, are you using the examiner because that's a word that we know, or is that what you call it in what do you call it in yoga? What is that title?
A lead trainer.
Wow. So that's like very advanced.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It's interesting. I don't know, I think because in skydiving to become an examiner, I think that the time in sport and having to teach and evaluate so many courses is the cost is so expensive to do that it was a turnoff to me where teaching yoga was so much easier and
Mm.
so much more accessible. So in order for me to, I guess, get in the ranks or whatever, it was
Mm-hmm.
a lot easier to do that. And yeah, so I've been teaching yoga since 2008 and been a lead trainer since 2020.
That's so cool. Wow. I
Yeah.
I haven't done. I've barely done any yoga, but enough to know that it is very difficult. That's a good workout. Like enough to be impressed that you can do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it depends, right? I think yoga is a lot like skydiving. There's so many
Mm.
different disciplines of
Mm.
it. There's ones where you move a lot and then get a good sweat. You work in a heated room. Or there's the opposite side of it, yin yoga, where you're like just holding poses in like a restorative pose and just let gravity do a lot of the work and prop yourself up. So it really depends on the style. So just like it's so much like skydiving, right? So many people don't understand all the different disciplines that we do in the sport, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we can fly in our heads, we can trek across the sky, wear wingsuits, and they're just like, what? And you compete in that? Yeah, like yoga is the same way.
Huh. That's cool. What year did you do your first skydive?
First,
Yeah.
I did my first
Or
one.
how old were you? Either one. How old were you or what year? How old were you would be I'd
I
rather
know,
know that.
like, am I gonna give away like how old I am? It was 1984, I think. 1982. I was 5 years old and was attached to my dad's rig, and I don't remember it. I remember a lot of duct tape. I remember a lot of duct tape, and yeah, there's some skydivers that are still around that were on the jump and will
Really?
tell me stories. And there's
Oh, that's
video
cool.
and there's photos and stuff, and I've shared some on my Instagram pages of some of the early jumps. But I did 11 jumps by the time before I turned 11, and then my dad went away for a bit, and then when he got back, I did my first solo jump at 16, and yeah, when I turned 19, I went to a drop zone, and they were so excited to have me there, which was weird. I'm like, third generation, and my dad was very well known. Not a lot of people knew who I was or my skills or whatever. So I show up to this drop zone, and they were so stoked. I was just doing what I do, just jumping with people. And I remember the DZO gave me $100, and I was like, "What is this?" And he goes, I just thank you. And I covered all your jumps and here you go. And I was like, whoa, like the light bulb started going. I'm like, I'm not going to college. This is what I want to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah,
you
but
go to
I
college?
did go to college. I did. I
Okay.
did. I'm actually with the black sheep of my family because not a lot of my family, my lineage has never been to college. I have a cousin who has been, but my grandmother sat me down when I went. I got my associate's degree, and she's like, "Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, Grams, what's up?" She's like, you're not skydiving as much, and you went to college." And I was like, "Aren't you happy and proud of me?" She's like, "Well, no, I'm worried. I'm worried. Are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like if I could just like." I'm like, this is good, Grandma. This will
That
be
is
good
such
for
a
me.
good story. Everybody else's grandma would be saying the exact opposite. That is
Exact
Opposite.
awesome.
opposite. I know, it
That
was
is
so
so,
weird. I was like, "Is this real life? Is this happening?"
what a great story. I
Yeah.
love that. I'm assuming your grandma's not around anymore.
She's not around anymore,
Oh,
no.
she would be
That
a
was my
fun lady
dad's
to have on the.
mom.
I would like to meet her.
Yeah, she was a cool lady for sure.
She sounds cool. Wow. That's funny. That's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
worried about you.
I know, I was like, "Worried about
You're
what?"
going to class, you're studying, you're not skydiving. What's wrong?
You're being really responsible."
I love it.
What?
That's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. So, uh, you listed off some things on your bio, and we just touched on yoga instructor, but you also said author.
Mhm.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, I love writing and I've written a lot in industry magazines and whatever, but when my dad passed away, he had a manuscript about his life of drug smuggling and pioneering skydiving world records and how he combined those two eventually and on the side trying to raise a family. And when he passed away, it was kind of like, I felt like, I don't know, maybe I made this up in my head, but I feel like my family was like pointing at me like, you got to do this. You're the writer in the family and you need to pick it up. So I remember picking it up, and it was in a binder, and it was really thick. It was so thick. So for me, it wasn't like picking it up and excited to, tell my dad's story, right? Because a lot of people are like, "Well, that's so cool, that's so wild," but for us, my brother and I, like, it wasn't. I mean, maybe like now that I'm older, I can see it, but when I was a kid, it was very traumatic and it was very confusing as a kid growing up. And so when I picked up that manual, it was so apropos because that's how I felt, right? I always felt heavy, and this
Mm.
manuscript was heavy. And and I knew that I was going to unearth some things about my dad that I didn't know if I would be ready for, and I knew I had to get ready for. And so, yeah, I did 2 years of therapy to get through doing that, to be able to see things objectively. And one thing that hit home for me going through therapy was that my dad did the best he could. And with the tools that he had, the knowledge that he had, and the resources that were available at that time. And he was amazing. Like, I now can see my dad for that. And that's why my brother and I advocated for him to be in the Hall of Fame, because he was extraordinary. But, this other side of him, was dark. It was a dark part of our lives. And yeah, so it took me 5 years to publish the first book, Sugar Alpha, and then another 5 years to publish Charlie Bravo, which is the sequel to Sugar Alpha. And Sugar Alpha is the fond name they called the DC3 at the time. And Charlie Bravo so Sugar Alpha is a lot about the drug smuggling in the marijuana side, and then Charlie Bravo is the cocaine side. So CB Cocaine Blues, because it goes from like this fun, lighthearted, drug smuggling days to the darker side of the smuggling business. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, I mean, if you, we want you to talk about whatever you want, but I'm very interested to know, like, what, as far as skydiving, what have been like some of your favorite things that you've done? Some of your favorite memories when you look back over your skydiving career. What I mean, you started. What'd you say? What year? 82, 85? No, what'd you say?
Yeah, no, 82. So I was a kid. So
I
I
mean,
mean, I was
but that's a
around it.
long time. So,
Yeah, I mean, around it literally my whole life, but I don't feel like I got into it until I was older, probably about
okay,
19. Even though I was
yeah.
solo skydiving at 16, I was 16. I was interested in driving my car and being away from my parents. I didn't want to go to the drop zone and be around my parents. You know? So, so anytime I was grounded, my dad would make me go to the drop zone, and he's like, "We're gonna do a 20-way," and I was like,
That's
and
rolling your
like
eyes because your
all
dad's
the
making you
skydivers were
skydive.
like,
I'm so
"That's so
sure.
cool." Yeah. I was
That's
like, "Oh,
hilarious.
this is so lame." And like I had no idea, right? As I grew up around it, like it was like my norm. So to be at the drop zone was a punishment when I was younger. So I don't feel like I got into it until I was 19. And I think it took me a while to really take to it, because it was something I always identified my dad with, and that was his thing. So in order to navigate, I experimented and tried so many different things. Competed on a team in free fly, freestyle. I've done world records in head down, upright, wingsuit, belly flying. I love canopy flying. I love everything about skydiving, right? And I think that was something like when you say looking back, what are you fond of? Like just in order of skill building, being able to almost do anything in the sport. I went and did my first crew jump last fall, which was super cool. But I feel like because I have so much foundational skills in a lot of other things, like it really wasn't hard. I was scared, nervous for sure, because I wasn't used to being like, I was with Will Kiddo, world champion, right? So I'm like, I knew I was in good hands, but like, whoo, like moving my canopy around, and he's like, moving like a ninja, and I'm like, slow down. But yeah, it was super fun. By the end of the weekend, I was like, okay, I'm ready to be on a team. Like, just kidding. I have way too much going on, but like, that's how I was super excited. So, like, in skill building, looking back, I feel like just being able to experiment with a lot of different disciplines, because I feel the different disciplines also have a lot of different people in them. Because we always talk about the people in the sport. I think the different disciplines, certain people gravitate towards a certain one or not. So the people are another thing looking back. And I'm also proud of all the accomplishments that I've done. I feel like when I first started, like I said, getting started in the sport, I didn't know what I wanted to do or how I wanted to get there. And I was often identified as Roger's daughter or Ruth's sister for a really long time. So I wanted to create my own identity. And that just started happening kind of organically. And I remember one day someone was like, oh, to my dad, they're like, oh, you're Missy's dad. And I was like, yes, they finally made it. They finally made it. But I would never uh, predict that I could have done the things that I've done and be where I'm at in the sport when I first started. And I think, I'm proud that I was able to have that stick to itiveness and perseverance to just keep going and keep showing up to opportunities and, doing the hard things.
Mm.
So it's kind of like threefold.
Yeah.
Chris,
No, go for it,
I've got
man.
more.
I'll
Uh,
wait.
can you explain what is a keynote speaker and what do you speak about?
Yeah, so a keynote speaker is, I would say, a professional speaker. And I did 7 years of Toastmasters. A lot of people don't know that, but it's basically skill building in public speaking. And I did that for a really long time because I do so much speaking in skydiving. And I just always try to find ways to improve myself as just an individual. And I thought that would be a really cool opportunity to be able to convey messages, inspire, and educate, and have people listen to me because it's a male dominated sport and we're type A personalities. And I'm like, how do I get people to pay attention to me? And I thought that was a great skill to have. And the cool opportunities started presenting themselves because of that. And there was a TEDx scout that came to the club that I was in, the Toastmasters Club, and found me and got me to talk on the TEDx stage. So I was able to do that, which was a really cool opportunity. I think I was more nervous to step on that red dot more than I've been on any world record skydive or even having my son. I was so nervous, right? Because TEDx has a reputation around it and an audience. So I wanted to be able to deliver and show up to that, and it was so surreal to feel chosen, seen, and heard, and have that opportunity. So it was really cool. So yeah, I go around, I do some public speaking events. Sometimes I do more, some years I do less, but I go to a lot of business conferences. I've spoken at PIA, and then I do little things like MC at nationals or the world meet. So those are cool opportunities too.
Would you say that, like, was TEDx or some of the other speaking, is it always about skydiving, or are there other topics? Is it not always about
Yeah,
skydiving?
yeah, it's not always about skydiving. A lot of it is, right? Because I think that's like the sexy cool part that reels people in. So I use that sometimes as the foundation of many topics, but a lot of it's about business to business leaders uh, in a lot of different industries. I've spoken like at Chamber of Commerce events. I'm also in marketing, which is the not sexy part, but sometimes is the bread and butter of what I do. And I do a lot of marketing talks, and that is not about skydiving at all. Sometimes it depends on the audience, but yeah.
Okay. Couple things in there. You have a son.
Yes, I do. I'm a
Yeah.
mom. He's 10 and he absolutely adores you, JRuss. You have a thing.
I don't get it, but okay. Well, if he gets listened to it, shout out to Benjamin. Um, and I know you didn't say it, but I want to just ask that you've been the meet director for at least one world meet, and then a
Yeah,
few nationals.
yeah, 2 nationals and the last world meet this last October. And I was the first
Okay,
woman to meet direct a world meet in the US and the first female meet director in US nationals history. So that was pretty cool.
nice. How did you find those experiences as meet director?
I never wanted to be a meet director. I feel like in skydiving, a lot of us are like, oh, I want a wingsuit or I want to get on a record, right? I think a lot of people are goal oriented or get on a team, or some people are just happy to have their weekend hobby, but they have this vision. And the longer you're in the sport, I don't know, you guys can tell me your experiences, but I feel like you might see something, you're like, oh, I want to do something new in the sport. I competed, but I don't have any recollection of the meet director at all.
Hmm.
And so it wasn't something that I was like, oh, I'm going to go and do this thing. It was all happenstance. There's a lot of things that happened in my life that just happened to be serendipitous. But it was at 2022 at Skydive Chicago. My brother's original meet director wasn't able to attend 3 months prior. So he had co-bid with Skydive Midwest, and they were like, what are we going to do? So they both were like, oh, should get Melissa and see if she'll do it. And at that time in my life, I was actually coming out of an abusive marriage. And I'm like, oh my God, like I can't, you guys, I'm like incredibly unreliable. This is a ridiculous idea. You should not have me do this at all. And they're like, great, we'll see you in September. They didn't even take no for an answer. I was all like, no, I don't think you like I called my brother again. I was like, bro, like I don't think he's like, no, 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 it'll be fine. All you gotta do is just show up. I'm like, okay. Think people like you guys know me. Like I don't just show up. Like I'm gonna come and I'm gonna like do the best that I can. And so yeah, I just put together all the public speaking skills, having been a former competitor, been a former DZO, like everything was accumulated into this one experience. So it was pretty cool to be able to put it all together and do the thing. And it was at the end of it, I was so surprised because I got so many compliments on doing it, and people all of a sudden remembered the meet director, and that's all I wanted, right? Because when I competed, I don't remember my meet directors. I mean, I can look back and kind of remember, but I wanted to bring inspiration and meaning to the competitors because I think competitors uh, are a tool that we can use to promote our sport, showcase what we're doing, and kind of get us out of that fringe, element. And a lot of people don't stay in the sport for a really long time. So for me, I just wanted to convey like what you're doing is important. And we're so glad you're here. And thank you. You guys are the inspiration for the next generation of skydivers. And so I wanted to be super competitor focused. I didn't want people to be like, ah, she's not letting us do the thing or whatever. I wanted to be, try to get all angles of whatever was happening to make the best decision for the competitors. And yeah, so it was a really cool experience.
Speaking as a fairly common competitor, I would say that putting the competitors first is relatively novel. Uh,
Which
so
is amazing to me.
yeah.
Right? I feel like I don't know. I don't know. I don't I can see things from all the angles, but I just remember being the competitor myself and having, those frustrations that I'm like, it could hinder your performance. And I felt like I just want to make sure that our athletes got the best that they could. So
JRuss, can you explain a little bit? Because I don't understand what you mean. Or like
Well,
just one like practical like example of what the
sure.
frustrations that you feel as a competitor when you feel like you're not being put first or whatever.
Um, yeah. Well, I think generally, it's always like if you think about a drop zone on a normal day, there's a there's a balance that needs to be kept between safety and money, and a lot of times safety loses that balance.
Mm.
And from a practical standpoint, I can understand that the place needs to keep the doors open. But especially after having worked at Sky of Chicago and a couple of other places, I know that there's a reasonable balance you can strike, and um, I feel like that's a similar thread in competition where there's the need for the whoever's hosting for the host to make money, or else there's no viability for competition in the future. But at the same time, I think in that thrust in their need to make money, sometimes the competitors get lost a little bit in the mix. And a specific example, um, a specific example that I can think of that I mean, this is super specific to what I do in competition, but I think in 2011, I first brought up that it's very difficult for VFS camera flyers to do their job when the sun is at its highest point. And and that probably the solution was to take a break in the middle of the day. Um, oh, oh, you guys were frozen on my screen, so hopefully that was momentary. Um, to take a break in the middle of the day, the FS guys, they don't really want to jump right away in the morning or in the evening because the sun is really flat on the horizon, and when they come off the plane, it can potentially obscure the grips, and by no fault of their own, a team loses points, and if the winning team is up by 50 points, who cares? But sometimes that's not the case, and a single point can decide a meet, which is really, to be honest, that's the meet that a lot of us want. I don't want to win by 70. I want to win by 7 or 8 or 3. Like I want the other team to be as prepared as we are. So anyway, if that was 2011, um, that's still an issue today
Hmm.
that we don't have completely fixed. And I have never had a competitors meeting after the meet when I attend all the competitors meetings where there wasn't unanimous agreement among the VFS teams that we need this rule. And it is finally in place on the national level, and it is not yet in place on the international level. And so, taking a break for 3 hours in the middle of the day or whatever, that presents a logistic difficulty for the meet director for sure. Um, it potentially slows operations that they're looking for, just like a normal weekend. They want to turn loads. They need to keep the machine moving, and when it slows down or stops, that's a loss of revenue. And since the margin is
Hmm.
pretty thin already for those meets, and I don't want to get too political here, but it's a USPA event, but the host carries almost every cost. And in fact, they have to give money to the USPA, even though USPA's mandate is to support competition. The host has to pay USPA, what's it called, a sanction fee,
yeah, it's
and
the
that
sanction
sanction fee
fee.
is a big bite.
Yeah.
And so I understand that the drop zone owner or the meet director, they have their own issues that are relevant to continuing to have competitions, and I want to keep competing. So I want to strike the right balance, but that's what I mean. Like when even though it's been unanimous agreement for more than a decade from the competitors, we're still struggling to get it implemented
Hmm.
in a way that makes sense for the host. So
Gotcha. Thank you. That's
yeah,
yeah. I didn't know any of that. I mean, I've never
yeah,
competed in skydiving, so that's interesting to know.
Yeah, being a meet director is, I don't know. I find the fun is the most challenging part. It's a huge puzzle with all these people, all these disciplines. Some take up more time in the sky, some take up more airspace in the sky. So it's being able to put that all together efficiently. And the first time I did it, I remember it was a cluster one day. And I was like trying to share with the air boss and the competitors, like nobody was hearing what I'm like, okay. That night I went home. I'm like, okay, I got to go to the drawing board. Like, how am I going to communicate better? So everyone can see what I see in my brain, right? And so I drew pictures. I drew pictures of how this was all going to go. And I had charts and graphs for the altitudes for everything. So that way, if I wasn't by Air Boss, he wouldn't slip. Oh, because there's different altitudes for different disciplines. And the pilot has to know what discipline they have on the plane and what altitude they're flying on the plane. And so, and for wingsuit and speed, they have a geometric box that goes into the plane as well. So they're reading altitudes off a different box, right? So it's making sure that everybody knows what's going on. So I drew pictures, and everyone's like, "Why didn't you do this?" And then I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just figuring it out on the fly." But the next day was so much more smooth because everyone could see what I needed to do to have it run more efficiently. That was the first time. And then when I got to Worlds, so when I meet directed 2024, I'm sorry, from 2022 to 2024, I also sit on the competition committee on the board of directors for USPA, which I did not realize the value of being a board member, having that experience to help shift some change in how we operate. And from the host side to the competitor side, it's been a really cool experience. So when we got to 2024, it was so much better. It was so great. And the communication had improved between the host and USPA and the meet director, right? It was cool. But being, I work for Skydive Chicago, I'm on the board, and I was the meet director. So I got to see all of these improvements firsthand. And then 2024 was super smooth. That when I went to Worlds to meet direct Worlds and the chaos was there, I'm like, ooh, I already knew how to matrix that in my brain to help communicate what needed to be done. And that was just during the training days because people didn't understand the nuances of all the different events and what they needed. Where wingsuit performance wants to go out 3 miles away, and Air Boss is like, no. Because I'm like, no, they'll be fine. Trust me. and wingsuit acro doesn't want to go super far. And then some of wingsuit acro can get on the same. I'm like, okay, you guys, here we go. So it was cool to be able to like jump right in and help manage that because of having that experience.
Yeah, one of the things that I think, I mean, and this is kind of going to segue into the board of directors stuff because I do have questions about that. But I think that it's been super helpful to the competitors to have some younger competitors get elected to the board. And if I could sum up what I feel like, if we go back to the board of 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer, there it was comprised mostly of there were some competitors on there that had been doing belly their whole life. And if you go to a nationals or even an international meet, belly flying, I mean, I don't know how many there were at the last nationals. I think numbers were down a little bit, but they're conservatively 60 teams of 4-way belly, and then 8-way and 16-way and 10-way. And that discipline is propping up the meet from a financial standpoint. Those, and then you get VFS that has 5 teams, and MFS that has, I don't know, last year was huge because it was a test event in the world meet. So there were a lot of extra teams. Normally there's probably 5 or 6, not very many. And so the rest of us are kind of riding the coattails of belly, which really translated into the way that the meet was run and the way that competitors were treated. Even though we all pay the same amount, the non-belly disciplines were really looked at as like, yeah, we'll get to you when we can. And when you went and dealt with the board, if I could sum up the response, it was kind of, get off my lawn, like just old guys that had been belly flying forever, and you young kids in your new discipline, get the hell out of here. Tell me when you're a belly flyer. But now Melissa's on the board, Jeannie's on the board. Um, Amanda is in an excellent position as I don't know her exact title, but like a athlete representative,
Director of competition. Yeah, she's
director
on
of
staff. Yeah,
competition.
she's amazing.
But we've just got some people who have dipped their toe in the water, as Melissa said, doing a lot of disciplines and understanding sort of the nuance of all of those, and basically just bringing some equality to the meet. Of my meet is as important. I've trained as hard or harder than most people there, and just having I don't know, a voice, someone that you can realistically talk to. I mean, it's the board has changed in lockstep with competition atmosphere changing as well. It's been a really nice shift, and I'd say maybe the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's so great. And I got on the board when Kirk Werner was the chair of competition, and I was like, how the hell is anyone going to replace him? Because he was great. He was awesome. And then Jim Reese stepped up, and I'm like, no way. He is so great. And he and I, when I did my first meet directing, it was this weird, ambiguous doing the debrief at the end of the event, like happening. And he was so interested in ensuring that it happened and that we heard from the competitors that I just looked at him in a whole new light. I'm like, he cares. He absolutely cares. Not that Kirk didn't care, but just Jim cares in a different way. And wanting to hear from the competitors. And so when I did 2024, it was like we didn't have to talk about it. Like we were there at the front of the room, ready to get feedback from everybody. And me directing, obviously, I couldn't be in all the ones, but as a board member, I think it was important for me, not just as a meet director, to hear the competitors. So when we went to the board, we had all this data, real life data that we could bring to affect that change. So I think, yeah, just getting just a lot of shaking up the snow globe on the board, which has been so amazing, and it's changed so much. I'm into my 5th year now, and I remember some members seeing the board when I first got on the board, and then just seeing it just this last board meeting we had a couple of weeks ago. And even my brother said it, and he goes, "You know what? I'm proud of USPA now." And I'm like, yes, like we're doing it. We're making the changes and having the hard conversations and not getting bullied into the old ways, or, like I'm proud too.
Yeah, it's and so, something you said. I don't know if you meant to sort of say it this way, but not only I mean, the perspective that someone like you brings to the board, to a lesser extent, I would say Jeannie, but you, kind of where you came from as far as the changes that your dad. I mean, without going too deep into what your dad was doing, he was implementing things in his programs that were not what other people were doing, and so in that sense, sort of a renegade in the industry. But also, as time played out, he was making a really good call that was supported over the course of time. So that kind of sort of, not cowboy, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm willing to step across the line a little bit. Your relationship with your brother, having one of the biggest drop zones in the world, your experience as a competitor, your experience as a meet director, and so sort of jack of all trades is not the right expression, but you know what I mean. Like, bringing just a lot of different experience from a lot of different areas to the board. it, it's just a fresh viewpoint that isn't pigeonholed into one dogma, so to speak. Like, seeing a lot of different angles, the struggles that your brother goes through to keep the doors open, and what, just all of that stuff. It's a perspective that, if I think if we could have that, with every board member, which is probably not realistic, I think it would be a better board. But certainly, anybody who's paying attention, the direction has been super positive, for a while now. It's been great.
Yeah, I'm happy. And I feel like there's a couple underdogs on the board that don't get enough credit, right? Because we have regional directors and we have national directors. Most people know the national directors because we're well known and established in the sport and have some longevity, where the regional directors, where they're known in their region, but not necessarily nationally or even globally. So, like, I just got to give some shout out to some of my fellow board members who are kicking butt and doing a really good job, and they care as much as me, and they bring some diversity that a lot of people might not recognize because they don't know him very, very well. But Brandon Radcliffe, he is in Southeast region, and Brian Naiman, he's in the, oh my gosh, he's on the California side. He's like in between Washington and Josh Hall's region. Josh is the western. I don't remember what Brian's region is called, but Brian Naiman, those two are amazing. And I'm just highlighting them because just recently they were a part of task force of rewriting the sim and the IRM. Like, we don't get paid to do this stuff. And I think people forget, sometimes we try to outsource things, but skydiving is so nuanced and it's so hard for people to come in and understand our language and the way we do things. And so the sim and IRM rewrite project has kind of been, you know, kicked the can down the road a little bit, and they picked it up and made it happen. Um, so that was Brandon's project, and then Brian, he helped with Ray Lalo the getting an alternative to the medical for the tandem medical done,
Mm.
right? Like, these guys are versed in a side of skydiving that I have a little bit of experience with, but this is what they deal on a day-to-day basis, and they are the instructors that are out there. I'm just an AFF instructor. I don't do tandems, so I don't understand that whole, the challenges and everything. I know as a DZO side and everything, but um, yeah, so those guys are regional directors and they're great. Josh Hall is really, really good. Like, um, I think the other thing too to note on the board is there's a lot more active skydivers on the board, which is really cool to see and to have those perspectives. We have Angie Aragon, who co-locates between Arizona and Chicago and everywhere in between. I had a chance to work with her. She had me come on as evaluator for one of her coach courses just to see what she does. Um, and I was like, wow, that's super cool, because I think sometimes examiners can be a little bit, you know, this is my thing, this is my baby, I don't want you to see or whatever. And Angie's just open arms, and just to watch how she conducts her courses and the professionalism and just how she got to where she is in the sport. Like, I'm super proud of her and like what she brings to the board, as well as she worked heavily in the Canopy Task Force project that launched last year. So yeah, there's a lot of people that I think that aren't getting that recognition because their names aren't well known. So I
Mm.
just wanted to, you know, we're a great team. This board is a really good team. I'm super excited about this term.
What do you think? Like, what are we going to see out of you guys in this term? What are your goals for the board?
I mean, we started pretty hot and heavy already, right? Like, we got the alternative to the medical um, passed, which I think is huge. It's something that's been working on. The IRM, the SIM, we have those out. So I think that's a pretty good start in telling of the year. I just got appointed as the membership services chair, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm honored too, right? Because a lot of my colleagues on the board were like, this is so perfect. This is right up your alley. And I didn't want to do more on the board. I'm actually trying to do less because I have to keep my boundaries of, workflow, right? Because I do care and I do want to give back and I want to do my best. Um, and so I stepped up to do that. So instead of being on 5 committees, I'm on 2 and I'm a chair of 1. So that was my compromise of becoming the of the chair. I know. Silly. But I represent basically all the members, but specifically people who don't fall under the competition or safety and training. So safety and training are the instructors, SNTAs, pro rating holders, and then the group membership is all the DZOs. So I'm kind of like the bridge of all the other, which is a huge portion of our membership. And so I just want to be more available and transparent and listening to what those members want, because of those other committees that I just talked about only represents like less than 25%. I don't have the data. I'm kind of guessing on numbers here. But so who's representing everybody else? So I kind of want to be the bridge that helps like what are we missing? We can see so much as a board, but collectively we can make an impact. We can make a difference together. So I'm on a mission this year personally to get that feedback and see what we can do to, help support our
And
members
so,
So,
there.
sorry, go ahead, Chris.
so are you saying that you represent basically just a regular old fun jumper?
Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah,
Melissa,
right?
Chris,
Melissa's our representative. You represent
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yes.
Chris is a regular old fun jumper.
Yes. I
So
love it.
Yeah.
for
No,
those people who are,
that's super good to know. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Go ahead, JRuss.
but so if I have an issue, probably my chain of events is contacting Amanda first, and usually I'm going to get satisfaction there. And if I don't even know what the next step is because I've never had to go higher than that. But so for the 75% or whatever percentage that is, a very large percentage of the people that don't compete and aren't rating holders, how do they reach you? How do you hear their voice?
Yeah, I have a Facebook group. If you go into Facebook and just search Melissa Nelson, National Director, you'll find my group. Otherwise, you can go to the front cover. I think it's in the first 2 pages of every parachutist magazine, or you can go to uspa.org/BOD, and all of our contact information is publicly put out there. But I'm a drug smuggler's daughter. My real address is not on there.
Okay.
Okay, so I
You're welcome.
all right, so I have a question. I have a friend who just reached out to me a couple days ago, and I don't know all the particulars, but evidently she has connected with someone at the USPA, and she is trying to work on putting together some organized safety information for wingsuiters.
Awesome.
I don't
Yeah,
know who she's working with at the USPA, but are you someone that she could reach out to for more assistance
absolutely.
in that type of thing, or is that someone else?
Yeah, no. So I'm guessing they probably worked with Brandon Radcliffe on the sim rewrite to get the updated wingsuit stuff. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about.
I
But
don't know what I'm talking about.
yeah, okay, yeah, because there's a couple of different things that we're working on. There's like we have layers, right? And,
Okay.
and there's something that I worked on. So we had a sport promotion subcommittee that I was the chair of, and it was a non-voting committee. So we could do some work, but we couldn't make like big decisions, like now being the membership services chair. So now that I'm the chair of the the real committee, I have a little bit of power, I guess, behind that. So we can bring some sport promotion into that. And one of the projects we were working on was the Pathways Project. And the Pathways Project is we can get people through the door, and we still want to look at ways and how we can keep getting people into skydiving. But the other part is how do we keep people in the sport? And the Pathways Project is giving them a pathway to all the different disciplines. Like, what is the steps do I need to become a wingsuiter? What is the steps to go in free fly? Do a world record? The foundation of it is pretty much the same across the board for all of the disciplines, but then there's all the little nuanced training for each discipline. So we reached out to some of the experts, and we reached out to some wingsuiters for the wingsuit pathway. And then it's how do we want to present that information to the membership? And then I work with our oh my gosh, George. She's the PR director. I can't remember. And then we have like director of sport promotion. I'm not sure their titles anymore. It's confusing because there's the staff directors and there's the board of directors, but the two staff members that are involved in the marketing aspect. So we get to work with them and how we disseminate a lot of this, whether it's through the newsletter, through parachuters articles, through social media, and our Starter magazine, which is a really cool project that the Sport Promotion Committee got to help staff launch, which was a really cool thing too. So we're getting ready for volume 2.
So, sorry, Melissa, my question was kind of like if you're representing 75%, and I don't know if I'm going to get the numbers right, but I think there's around 40,000 active skydivers in the US,
Yep.
which puts 75% around 30,000. Um, how do you separate the signal from noise? How do you know what 30,000 people would like to see happen on the board? I mean, even the 10,000 that are like I've been to board meetings and I talk to the competition committee all the time, and I feel like I have a pathway, and I have a community of VFS people that I am relatively in touch with, and I don't know if I can speak for them, but a lot of times I end up being that spokesperson. But you know what I mean? Like that collective of a lot of people, are you putting out, do you put out polls? Do you just listen to whatever people are going to put on social media and say, hey, I'd like to see this, and gather those ideas? Or is it a combination, or is there a strategy? Or like, how do those people, if, man, I really want to see this out of my USPA, how do they get that to you?
Yeah, I think email's the best thing. We also have, like, if people really believe in an idea, there's a way you can submit agenda items as well. I don't know
Mm,
if we can put links to this recording, but I can put a link in there for you guys, so people can submit that, and then we kind of vet that at the board. But since I became a director, I've been actively involved, and I do national director tours in like regions. So if I get hired at a certain place, I'll spend another week and I'll try to hit as many drop zones as I can to talk to the jumpers and the DZOs and like listen, boots on the ground, like what's happening at your drop zone, like what, and then I try to give resources. And the biggest topic I get when I'm on the road is safety and training related. And that is not my expertise. Yes, I'm an instructor in pro rating, but it is a very small slice of the pie when it comes to safety and training. So I try to give them contacts either to the regional director or the director of safety and training, just so they can get that information that they're looking for that I might not be able to answer. So I realize I use notes in my phone to write some ideas, and some ideas are one offs for sure. But I started noticing trends. So I've kept those notes, and now that I'm chair, I'm trying to see if there's things that I'm hearing more of. And the cool thing is a lot of those things in these notes we've been checking off. So I'm like,
mm,
okay, we're moving forward and getting stuff done. So I almost feel like it's been a few years now and I need a refresh on this list. And people can either submit agenda items, you can get with your regional director, you can contact me. Um, so people can come to us with ideas. But the thing is that, when we have to think of, okay, we have an idea, how many people in the membership is this going to benefit? Is it like a small portion? Is it a big portion? Is it going to require more staff resources to, do the thing that the member wants? So there's a lot of different elements that we have to consider before we're like, oh yeah, let's pass this thing. You know, is it going to cost us money? Well, we have our budget in, so it's not like we can, just throw the budget out the window. So we have to still work within our budget. And then remembering that we have these projects going on, so that way when the budget does open up or we're redoing the budget, that we can consider these new things that might be on the table. So I don't really have a strategy other than that, because a lot of people, as crazy as it seem not to care. And
mm.
and they're just like, here's my dues, give me my magazine, and peace out. I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean, grassroots, which is kind of what you're saying, boots on the
Yeah.
ground, is, in my opinion, at least, radically different than any other strategy that I've seen on the board. If you could call it a strategy, um, say a decade ago, it would have just been kind of like, yeah, I don't know, I'll do what I think is best. Um, and so at least hearing the voices of the people that are out there sounds great. Um, I had a
Well, and
couple of
also
like, uh,
when you
go ahead.
consider trying to listen to 30,000 people, that's a huge task.
Yeah.
That's hard. Like to
Yeah.
try to consider and to even let them know, like, hey, I want to listen to you. Like that's not even easy to let everybody know. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
So that's why
a
I
lot
have my
of a lot
Facebook
of the
group.
noise that you're going to hear is maybe not worth listening to.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what USA Fun Jumpers is for Facebook, right?
Mm,
Like they can all put that there. I have almost 2,000 people in my Facebook group now, and I think that represents, I've done some polls and stuff in there, and we tend to mirror exactly the whole membership, which, we did a poll. Do you guys remember when the e-license was on the table?
Mhm.
Okay, so you're all right. So I was not a board member at the time, but I was running, right? Like I was gunning for any special election or whatever. And I create this Facebook group. I think there's like 200 or 300 people in it. And I'm like, the board wants to do an e-license. And I personally thought it was dumb. But then I'm like, okay, but I'm one person. I've been in the sport forever. So like, is my perspective, you know, am I really representing my
Yeah.
members by my opinion? So I
Yeah.
wanted to hear from everybody. And the sentiment was no, they don't want this e-license. And so I did this poll, and I don't sit on safety and training. I still don't, but all the board members and staff members are part of this group, and they saw this conversation. They brought it up themselves, and they were like,
Hmm.
okay, we're going to poll the entire membership and see what they think, because my Facebook group wasn't good enough, you know. And so they polled the entire membership, or whoever like submits a survey, and it mirrored exactly the same as the 200 people, that people were, for majority, did not want it. And I was like, yes. Because that concept proved several things, right? It's proved that the Facebook group was valuable, and that the other directors and staff members were listening through that channel, even though it's not an official USPA tool, right? Because we have to work as a board. All 22 of us have to make a vote and go through the process for anything. But it showed me that Facebook group, uh, we can listen through that channel. And because I can't be everywhere and I can't have 30,000 people, knocking on my door all the time, I was like, okay, this is a really cool opportunity to get feedback. So yeah, and we have hard conversations, and I show up for them. I always say, I get virtual tomatoes thrown at me all the time. I have a band of haters, and unless they're incredibly disrespectful, I keep them part of the conversation because I represent all the members, right? If they're bullying, if they're threatening, I will remove them, but otherwise I feel like I will show up to these hard conversations.
If they're just regular old jerks, they can stick around.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I'm going to be a crusty old skydiver one day, so.
do
Well,
you think? Oh, sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
I have a question, but it's a different subject totally. So
Okay, let
if
me
you have
finish
a,
on this because I have
okay.
political hot button questions that
Oh, okay. All right.
put
Well,
Melissa on
maybe
the
that's
spot.
more fun.
On the spot, let's
Should we
go.
have? Should there be term limits on the board? And should there be restrictions about who can be allowed to be on the board?
So, good question. And this has been ongoing since I've been on the board, because there's a lot of other board members who absolutely agree with this. And we've been vetting this. In order for anything to get passed on the board, we have to do our due diligence in the interim. We can't just, what I've realized is what was happening a lot in the past. This is why I feel like not a lot of stuff got done before. Is we didn't have virtual communications, where now we can meet on Zoom or Teams or whatever, so we can be more productive in a forum where we can vote, right, when we do a proper meeting. We didn't have that before. And the other thing is that the due diligence wasn't happening in between, but now we do. We have board members who are actually working to get stuff done. So with term limits, I think a lot of us agree, but it's the implementation and how that works. Like, do we do rolling elections? And that just makes it harder on staff and our technology in order to be able to do rolling elections. Um, and then it's like, well, how long do we do the term limits for? Um, I'm all for it. I'm all for term limits, absolutely. Because what I've noticed is, with the board turnover in the last 4 years, like, you've been noticing a lot of changes, is because there's a lot of new faces on the board. And not to say that the board members past, like, thank you very much. I appreciate you, like, but it is time for fresh perspectives, and people who are willing to do the work. So I'm for it. I mean, there's a lot of us for it. We've had some pretty heated debates within the board about it, and what that looks like. So, I mean, it's still an ongoing conversation. It's just, how are we going to do it, basically. Um, and then the other one was. What was the other question?
Well, um, I think there are certain situations where people who are on the board are conflicted, and it's so difficult. Like it's got to. I mean, it would have to be spelled out pretty clearly, because like in my opinion, just my opinion, I think that someone who owns a drop zone makes it for a very difficult board of directors person because it's so difficult to separate themselves from their business. And um, the the one that comes to mind is of course Larry, and Larry has been tremendously good for the sport of skydiving and has done so many positive things for the sport all around. But at least in the meetings that I've been a part of and when I've been paying attention, it's very difficult, in my opinion, for him to vote in a way that isn't directly supporting his drop zone. And um, that's why I'm like, but having said that, your brother owns a drop zone, and so it's very difficult in such a small sport that it really is so small for there to be a person who's completely free of conflict. That is not going to happen. But I feel like there's places where the conflict is too much, and if you're going to if you're going to be a representative of skydivers, that should be first, and your conflicted stance needs to take a back seat to that, which I don't know if that can happen when you're a drop zone owner.
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? And it's our conundrum because I thought the same exact thing when I first got on the board. But now that I've been on the board, I feel like that has shifted a little bit because I've watched some DZOs absolutely put the membership first, right? And to the contrary, and they will talk about it. And I also feel like there's a different accountability on the board that wasn't there. And I'm not saying that I was the influence to it. I think it's been a collective for sure, and it's been changing. And I also feel like Albert, our executive director, and our staff have also stepped up amazingly. I definitely wanted to point that out too. That um, we sign a conflict of interest document when we onboard. And every single one of us has a conflict of interest of one sort or another. My association, obviously, is with my brother in Skydive Chicago and all of my sponsorships. And I also make money through the sport. So I'm all, those are my personal conflicts to the board. And then you have the DZOs or managers of drop zones. But I have watched a couple of these DZOs do a really good job navigating or recusing themselves from voting, but obviously will make themselves heard before we vote, and then they would recuse themselves. So when my brother bids for nationals, I recuse myself from choosing that whatever drop zone is on the table because A, for the conflict of interest, but B, the last couple of times I've been the meet director. So I feel like that is an incredible conflict of interest. So I try to do my best that way. And I feel like the rest of the board does as well. But it's a sticky situation. Like all of the examiners on the board, they have that conflict of interest. So it's like, how do we do that? Like, I don't know. I feel like you just have to be mindful in the elections on who you want on the board to be representing you. I feel like we just have to do better as members to be more involved in who we're putting up to represent us.
Do you know off the top of your head what the percentage is of the people who actually cast a vote for my membership?
Oh my goodness. I did. I don't have the numbers on, and it's pretty much been the same.
Pretty low, right?
For Yeah, it's a low number. It's not a significant number. I want to say like 13%. Don't quote me on that, but I can put numbers
You're
up. And I
saying
Yeah.
think it was
13% of jumper
yeah.
of USPA
It hit.
members
I
vote
think
on
it was
the
like
election?
four, five or 6,000. I can look it up real quick.
Like the
Wow.
winning number for a national board of directors is going to be like 1,200 votes, right? Something like that.
What's
1,300
that?
votes. I mean, it, like if you go for national director, the number of votes that you can probably going to get is 1,200, 1,400. People are going, and
See,
that's going to
that's
get you elected to that spot.
not anymore.
Oh, really?
Not since Jeannie, Amy, and I ran. Like we get between 2,500 and 3,000 votes now.
Okay.
Uh,
It's
so we've
much
changed
better than
that
I
landscape
thought.
dramatically. So, like a lot of people think, oh, just your name, you're getting voted because of your name or whatever. It's a popularity contest. I get that too. But, I'm a marketer too. I put myself out there in different ways. Like I campaigned, and my colleagues are like, we never had a campaign until you got on the board. Like now it's a thing. I'm like, we should be
Yeah.
campaigning, and we should, because it's also showcasing. I never knew when elections. I've been a skydiving for 31 or 32 years, and I never knew when the election. It was all of a sudden, it was like, whoa, we have it. The elections happen. Like it was a mystery all the time. So I don't want it to be like that. I want people to know. I want people to be inspired by what we are doing and want to step up and show up, because I will term limit myself. I don't want to do this forever. You know what I mean? Like I will do my part. And I do that in a lot of things. I watch things like take over, like do really well. And I'm like, okay, like I don't need to be here micromanaging this. Like I can step away and do the next thing, like I'm like, cool, like high five. We're a team. Let's make this sport awesome.
Chris, I have another question, and it is shifting gears, but you were going to shift gears, so let's hear it.
Well, we're at a little over an hour. Well, we can go as long as
Yeah,
you
I'm good.
want. We'll sit here and talk,
I'm fired
JRuss and I
up.
will. But do you want to go with yours, or you want me to?
Well, what I was going to ask about is something that I know Melissa's been involved in, and I know is very successful, and that's an online curriculum for AFP. And I just wanted to touch on it because I was around for some of the filming and I watched it, but also because of because of what I understood to be sort of the success of it. And it isn't something that's been implemented sort of broad scale, I don't think, but maybe should. And I just wanted to give Melissa a few minutes to chat about that.
Yeah, Chris knows. We've talked a little bit about this
We we've
too, and
been
some
we've
other.
been
We have other
brainstorming.
ideas.
We've been
Hmm.
brainstorming for a long time, trying to figure
Yeah,
out how
yeah,
to help each
we have
other.
some other ideas that are in the works for the future. But yeah, during COVID, because I'm a marketer, I took some online courses, and obviously, my dad had a bunch of training videos on VHS tape, that he put together. It wasn't the whole thing, but it was a majority. It was a majority of it. And so I think it was just the culmination of that happening. I did not see the marketing course. I saw an online first jump course the whole time, and I couldn't get it out of my brain. And so I put one together for a really small drop zone as a test, and it was so wildly successful. It was so good. And my brother happened to come visit me at that time when I was producing it, and he sat while I was editing it, and he's like, "What are you doing?" So I tell him and I show him, and he goes, "I want one, but I'm going to do it myself." I'm like, cool. Like, I don't care who does it. I feel like this needs to be industry standard, right? So a year later, he came to me and he's like, "All right, I didn't get it done. Can you do it for me?" And I was like, hell yeah. And so I did his needs to be updated now. I've noticed some like a little bit of errors and stuff, but I just a little busy, but I'll get those updated. Um so he was the first big drop zone that I did it for, and it was so successful. It is still so wildly successful. In fact, they don't do any more in-person ground schools. Um, and then
Hmm.
I did it for Skydive Chicago, Skydive Sebastian, Skydive Paris, and Air Ohio. And with all of those, I didn't go, they came and sought me out, like on a weather hold during the world record, I forget, 2022, I think it was. Dan BC was like, "Hey, your brother was telling me this online first jump course. I got to see it." And I was like, okay, like I wasn't trying to pitch to him, but like I am so convinced that this is the way of the future, to create consistency of teaching, to make sure everything is taught, we're not forgetting anything. And the visuals to be able to teach are so much better than an instructor going, "Okay, you're going to pull your toggles down," but like when you see the video, we're actually doing it. Like we wear POV cameras so students can to see it. It's as close as you can get without them actually doing it, right? So with the online first jump course, it doesn't completely replace the in-person training, right? Because they have to come in and pull handles and practice, and you got to show me you can arch and stuff like that. So, but it takes away the 6 to 8 hour ground school, and you don't have to find instructors to teach that course, because it was like a pain point on drop zones. That they have to go and find an instructor to teach the thing, and who loves to teach it? I'm an anomaly. I love teaching, I love speaking, and I love telling stories. So I don't mind, but I don't want to do it every weekend either. So this is kind of like, this is the solution for that. But so the students would go and do the online course, and then they come in for like a 1 to 2 hour practical with an instructor, and then they're good to go. And what else does that do is it frees up their entire day to actually jump and not just do the course and maybe jump because of sunlight, weather, or whatever. They're coming in on that beautiful day, and they can actually jump. So they're spending more time jumping than they are in a classroom, but we're not skipping anything. And I think Steph told me that you guys have used it for some of your other um, private students and stuff like that. And I was like, that's a great. I didn't even think about it being used in that way. And now I have examiners, because Rook allows other people to have access. I don't know what deal he makes with everybody, but examiners use it for their candidates that have to teach a course. They have to sit through a course, and so instead of having to find a drop zone and sitting on one and hoping people show up for them, they're like, oh, here, it's online. You can do the thing, right? And I was like, huh, I didn't even think about that either. Like, that's such a great idea. I was just looking at the pain point of drop zone owners uh, trying to fill that slot, because it is a pain in the butt, to find people that want to teach it. Um, so yeah, the 4 drop zones that I have done it for, I'm like, I always wait for like the other shoe to fall, right? I'm like, oh, there's gonna be a problem fixed. Nothing. They got, they love it. Like all the drop zones. I work with Sherry Butcher on the board, so she and I, worked on hers, and they are like raving fans. And then I saw the school managers for Paris at the DZO conference at PIA, and they were like hugging me. They were like, this is the best thing ever. We will never go back to the old way. I'm like, I know, right? I also got to experience it as an instructor, because for the last few years I've been, doing AFP here at Skydive Chicago. And just to, like, I quiz them, right? I'm all like, did they really watch it? And do they really do all the things? And it's amazing. They come to the drop zone as if they were here for a month. You know what I mean? Like they're what they know, the acronyms that we use and how we do things, or just the flow of everything. They just move seamlessly right through. I was like, man, this is amazing. This is an amazing experience. So I have not heard a bad thing about it, and it's been 4 years since I produced my first one. So
Yeah. Cool.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right.
I'm good.
Well, do you want?
But is that kind of the thrust of what you were going to ask, Chris, or is there another
No,
direction
no,
that
no,
you want?
no. I was going to ask something totally different.
now let's go
Do you
for
want
it.
to go for it?
Yeah.
Well, um, I'm just always really curious to hear people's thoughts on 2 different topics: coaching and organizing. I'm going to ask you. I would like to ask you about organizing, um, because I'm pretty confident that you've had a lot of different experiences organizing, watching other organizers, being a part of events. So, what? How can I be a good organizer? What is a good organizer? What does that mean? What have you seen when you see someone like, man, they just did such a good job? What did they do? What was that? Because I've had lots of different opportunities. And sometimes I feel like, oh, I did a great. People are happy. Maybe they learned whatever. I walk away feeling really great. And then some days I've walked away from organizing all day long and just feel terrible. Like, did I just waste everybody's time? Like, what the heck was I doing? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I think just working with, like I think some jumpers understand the role of an organizer, and some jumpers are like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. You know what I mean? Like I think
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't take it
exactly.
too personally, but I don't know. I feel like I just do things differently, and I hold myself to an incredibly high standard, and I know I can't do that for everybody, but I notice when people from AFF to organizing is that a lot of people talk a lot, right? Like people, organizers, teachers, we talk a lot. And I've learned to shift the dialogue into me not talking, but to them talking. And because I think a lot of times they already know, they've heard it a million times. You're not the first person to tell them the thing, right? We were probably the 400th person to tell them the same thing, but they've got to find a way to make it their own. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what they do on the side all the time, you know what I mean? Like we don't have time to like dig in like we just did for the last hour plus. And so I asked them a lot of questions. I'm like, well, what do you think about that skydive? It's good. Why? Why was it good? Well, I did this right. I'm like, fuck yeah. Yeah, you did. Well, what could you do better? Well, I didn't do this thing right. Well, why? Why I didn't do that? I'm like, well, why didn't you do that? I don't
I don't
know.
know.
My cat died. I don't know. Like, well, cool. I'm like, okay, well, what can you do to make it better? Well, I need to do this. I'm like, well, what will make you remember to do that thing you were told 400 times in the sky? Like trying to make them accountable to themselves of why they do the thing. And it's like magic when they get it. They're like, oh, they found the way, that they needed to hear it for themselves. And sometimes it's just themselves talking it out. But I think we say it to them all the time. You need to put your tin down, put your tin down, put your tin down, put your tin down. Well, like, well, show me, what do you think that your head should look like? Oh, it should look like this. I'm like, does it look like that in the video? No. Well, okay. Why not? I don't know. I've got hundreds of tunnel time and I have this thing and I broke my back and all the thing. And I'm like, cool. Okay. So now we're going to have to find a way to make this happen with all of those things. Let's practice here on the ground. Like, how can we make that happen for you? Because a lot of different shapes and bodies and personalities and whatever, we can all get there. It's going to look different from one person to the next. So you kind of have to like wipe that slate clean and let's figure out how it's going to look like for you. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
giving them that foundation. So I feel like when I see a good organizer, they're listening and asking more questions than just, talking. But that's me personally. I feel like when I have a coach ask me questions, I'm already engaged in a different way than if someone was just talking at me. So I don't know if you guys resonate with that or not, but I feel like that goes like in any area of teaching, not just skydiving.
Yeah. No, that definitely resonates. That is, I think that's very helpful. That's good.
Cool. Well, are we there? Is it the end? Cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Melissa, and for the work that you're doing on the board and for the other stuff that you've done to contribute to the sport of skydiving. As a competitor, at the meets that you've run for me have been fantastic. So thanks for that as well. And for our listeners, thanks for joining us for an hour and 18 minutes of improving your knowledge about skydiving generally, the functioning of the board. Chris likes to sign off with what's it from? Like Ren and
Car
Stimpy
talk.
or something?
Ren and
Car,
Stimpy, I'm sure.
car talk of like, you've wasted a perfectly good hour by being here.
Hey,
And
don't steal my tagline, man.
I always disagree. I think we've spent a wonderful hour being educated about the functionality within our sport. So that's great. Thank you
you,
very much,
Melissa.
You said that people can reach you through Facebook groups, the inside of Parachutist, I think, second or third page, and on the board of directors website. Your contact information is there. So hopefully good spots for people who want to reach out to you and voice their many opinions about how skydiving should proceed for the next part of your
Yeah,
term.
it's a scary thing, right? I'm all like, all right, are the virtual tomatoes coming through?
No, hey, if you reach out to Melissa, voice your opinions nicely,
Be
in
Yeah, be
nice.
nice.
kindness. Be nice. Just
Funny
because you're
that we
doing
have
it through
to
the
like,
internet doesn't mean you can be mean.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm
Yeah.
on your side. How about
Yeah,
that? Like, I'm
yeah,
on your
exactly.
side.
That's
Let's
right. Yeah,
collab.
she's our teammate. Be nice to
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
teammate.
Yeah.
She's trying to help us.
Cool.
Come on, for the love.
Cool. Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much,
Melissa.
Melissa. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Awesome to chat with you and be here.
Yeah.
Cool. And hopefully we'll be seeing you around the meets and on the board of directors, and of course in the magazine. You look famous. Cool. So for everybody, thanks very much for joining us again, and we will see you. Oh, sorry. I gotta give the crave part of get out there, skydive, enjoy the sport, time with your friends, be safe, and
Have
Crave is
fun, for
always
the love.
encouraging
Have
you
fun.
to have fun. Crave is always here for you to do more and be better.
All right. See you guys.
Cool. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.